Now, what we learned was tithing was a command. Tithing was a command under the law of Moses. We learned that tithing was done once a year, not once a week, not once a month. It was commanded to do once a year. And we can find that in Numbers chapter 28, verse 26, and also in Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 22 through 29. And then we also learned there's a third year tithe. A third year tithe is when things are gathered up from what the people, the children of Israel, had gathered up for 3 years, and they would give that third tithe for the fatherless, to the widow, and to the motherless, and to the poor people. So that was given every third year, and we find this in Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 12. And we learned that the people tithed off their livestock, off their crops, off their cattle. That's what they tithed off of. So we see that money was not mandatory unless someone wanted to redeem their tithe. And what I mean by redeem their tithe, that if they wanted to keep their values of what they gathered from their livestock and their herd, if they wanted to keep that, they would have to give 10% of that value plus 1/5 of what had to be added from off that. So technically, they was given a 10th off their livestock, and then they had to add another 20% on top of that 10th to make up for them not wanting to give out of their crop, or better yet, their resources. Amen. And we'll see that in Leviticus chapter 27, verse 31. So that was more of a buyback situation that the Lord had put in place. So when we look at tithing and how much they had to give back then, it does not seem like it was a good practice. And the reason why it wasn't, it does not appear to be a good practice, because the Lord used tithing pretty much like a penalty, so to speak, like a punishment, because the children of Israel constantly kept going against the law of Moses, kept sinning against God. So the Lord had put something in place. So that's what that comes from. I'm going to dig a little deeper. Many of you guys probably have heard, well, Abraham gave King Melchizedek 10% of his tithes. No, that's incorrect. First of all, it was not Abraham, it was Abram. He was not blessed as the father of nations at that time. So what he did was he actually tithed off the spoils of war when he went to go rescue Lot. You can find that in Genesis chapter 14, verses 14 through 18. So you see that breakdown. So it wasn't necessarily what he earned. He only tithed off only the spoils of war. He did not get blessed as the father of nations, or got changed from Abram to Abraham to about 3 chapters later. So that came later down the road. And then we go mosey on down to Genesis chapter 28, where you see what Joshua, people want to put up Joshua, how Joshua gave 10% of everything to the Lord. But if you go back and read the text carefully, you will see there's one big 2-letter word, and this one big 2-letter word said if. In Genesis chapter 28, verses 18 to 22, Joshua said that I will give the Lord a 10th if you bless me. If changed everything. Before the Mosaic law was established, the people of God operated under the grace. And through Abram, not Abraham, through Abram and Joshua, they had a choice to give a 10th. But under the law, tithe was a command. It was a command. And what we learned last week, the biggest bombshell of them all, that's been used across our pulpits for decades probably. I didn't grow up in the church, so probably even longer than what I think it is. But we see in Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 through 9. I'm going to read this out to you. It says, will mere mortal rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how are we robbing you? In tithes and offering. And in verse 9, it says, you are under a curse, your whole nation, because you rob me. Folks, the Lord used tithing as if it was a curse. It was a penalty, because the children of Israel constantly kept sinning, and this was under the old covenant. This verse here has nothing to do with today. I repeat, this verse has nothing to do with today. It's one of the most misused verses of the Bible, that we can ever imagine. And if you just look at the words that is used in here, it can relate to that because it says nations. Well, folks, who's a nation? For all my world history teachers out there, we know that during that particular time, the known world was not discovered yet. The whole planet Earth was not discovered yet. And when it was talking about the nation, it was talking about the nation of Israel. It was not talking about the world. It was talking about the children of Israel. They was the ones that was robbing the Lord because they were not tithing the way it was supposed to. So the Lord had put a curse on them because they did not follow that command of tithing in the Old Testament. Folks, all we doing is learning what the Bible say about tithing.